Welcome, everybody, to podcast number 13. That's right, we're out at Area 51. Well, at least I am, because I do things. So, unlike my brother and my father, I am broadcasting live from the desert. And this episode probably won't air because of certain rights and things that you can read on the bottom here. Anyhow, I'm with my favorite and my best oldest brother, Todd. How are you doing, sir?
Oh, boy. Oh, boy. I have the Steve Cohen tin of popcorn. I want to thank you for the biggest tin of popcorn ever. This is about 40 pounds of popcorn in all the flavors. And the reason Steve sent this to me is it says on the top, "Thanks, Todd, for your rant. Thanks to you, I'm now knee-deep in a luxury tax I never wanted to be in. Signed, your buddy, Stevie." So, Steve, I want to thank you. Because in here we have everything a growing Mets fan needs.
It's unbelievable. Holiday season cheer. Also joining us today is my father. Dad, how are you today?
I'm great. I can't match Mr. Todd, but I still got my baseball gumballs ready to go.
The absolute best. Throw one over here. I'll knock it out of the park. And a couple things have happened since our last notorious podcast. Winter meetings came and went. Some players may have signed. I don't know any player who hasn't signed with the Mets. Todd, do you want to do like a quick little wrap-up of we just lost the best pitcher ever to the up-and-coming low-level Texas Rangers, which is adorable. We love you, Texas. I still vote for you as my SwingBadder stadium. However, the Mets apparently heard that news, and they just decided to sign everyone, I guess. Where are we looking?
The rumor was that Steve Cohen watched the press conference where Jacob deGrom sat with the Texas Rangers with the Texas Ranger hat on, and said he was convinced by the fact the Texas Rangers wanted to build a winning culture. And he apparently went through 5 pounds of beef jerky, and then at the end of the meeting got on the phone with Brandon Nimmo, and within 5 minutes they had a deal. And then apparently went to his GM and said,
"Bring me everyone." What do you mean everyone?
"Everyone!" And the GM said, "But what if we already have people at those positions?" He said, "I don't care. Everyone! I'll show you a winning culture, baby. And send Lemieux some popcorn."
I keep trying to think of a scene where the bad guy or the good guy is like, I want all of them dead. Everyone. All of
Very easy. Leon the Professional. At the end, when they're trying to go in and get him, and they go in with the SWAT team, and Leon's killing everyone, and they ask Gary Oldman how many people they should send in, and he just turns, and in the best coked out head ever, he just screams, "Everyone!" And it's fantastic. And I just imagine Steve Cohen, after eating 5 pounds of jerky, who should we sign? And he turns to Epler and he goes, "Everyone!" Just as loud as he can. It's fantastic. Throw that clip in there. It's
fantastic movie. I like it. But before we go into other signings, because there were other teams that did sign some players, I know no one heard about it because the Mets have kind of sucked all the energy there. All right, everybody, it's that time of the day, that time of our podcast where we get to torch up that fire, bring out those marshmallows, get ready for, Dad, story time.
Tonight's story is about a Hall of Famer named Rube Waddell. Now, got to do a little bit of imagination here because Rube's pitching career started in 1898. It ended in 1910. So that's about 125 years ago. The world was different. Baseball was different. So it's, we're trying to figure out what this is about. But we do know this. In the first decade of the 20th century, no matter how much you read about it, the two recognized best pitchers in baseball were Hall of Famer Christy Mathewson and Rube Waddell. Now, Cy Young was also pitching in his time, but Rube rated higher than Cy Young. He was a flame-throwing left-hander from what we can tell. So I'll start my story with a simple example. In August 19th of 1900, Rube Waddell pitched 2 complete games in a day. The first game was 17 innings long, and he allowed 1 run. The manager said, "We got to play another game. I want you to pitch it." Now, it was a shortened game. It only went 5 innings, but he threw a shutout. So he pitched 22 innings and allowed 1 run. So this was the kind of stuff Rube was capable of. He once won what they called the quadruple crown of pitching. He led the league in wins, ERA, strikeouts, and saves. He won saves with 4 because people didn't record or check the saves. But no, I don't know if any pitcher's ever done that before. Now, here's the thing that makes Rube Waddell really unique. Some people felt he was mentally challenged, but I think the more you read about the poor guy, I think he just had severe ADD. He would lose concentration easily. When he was a child, he was attracted to fire trucks, and his parents couldn't find him for 3 days. And they found him at the fire station because he just loved to be around fire trucks. He had been known to just put his glove on the mound and leave the game and chase a fire truck. And what he wanted to do was work with the firemen to help the fires. Fans, understanding Rube's problems, would bring teddy bears and shiny objects to the game and shake them at him, and he'd get all distracted because he'd want to see these things. So that made him very unique. Interestingly enough, because of this, he was one of the best draws in baseball. When he pitched, not only was he a good pitcher, but you got some guy who might do something crazy. Well, Rube Waddell was famous for just leaving the team. He was an absolute down-in-the-hole alcoholic. So when he wasn't pitching, he usually got completely drunk and went fishing. And they had to go find him to get him to pitch the games. He, one time, left his team and joined a melodrama play and toured the country in the play, even though they said he didn't memorize the lines, he ad-libbed every night. But he drew people until one night in Chicago, he didn't show up for the play. He heard there was another play in town that had a live lion in the play. So he went to that play and skipped his own and somehow got upset with the lion, jumped on the stage and punched it. And this sounds impossible. The lion bit him in his left hand. Come on, his pitching hand. This is all true. I'm going to end the story now with just a paragraph that I got from a historian named Lee Allen. It's about the year 1903 with Rube. 1903 found Rube sleeping in a firehouse in Camden, New Jersey, and it ended with him tending bar in a saloon in Wheeling, West Virginia. In between those 2 dates, he won 22 games for the Philadelphia Athletics, played left end in a businessmen's rugby team in Michigan. He toured the nation in the melodrama The Stain of Guilt, courted and married and became separated from an actress named May Skinner of Massachusetts. He saved a woman from drowning, accidentally shot a friend through the hand, and was bitten by a lion. All true in the same year. Rube pitched through 1910. He kind of ran out of gas. He ended up with 193 wins in his lifetime and an ERA of only 2.16. And he struck out 2,300 people, and he only pitched 12 years. But there was a flood, and Rube got involved trying to save people from the flood, and he caught pneumonia. He never recovered from it, and he died 3 years after his pitching career ended. So he died at the young age of 37. I am going to make one final suggestion that we at SwingBadder The next time the Suits meet, the guys who own this company, the Suits, when they get together for a board meeting, I want to propose that we launch a Rube Waddell fan club that members of SwingBadder can join, and we can send them notices like when it's Rube's birthday and things like that, little memories, because I think Rube deserves the attention. But we'll let the Suits decide that one. In the meantime, that's a brief glimpse into one of the craziest guys who ever played baseball.
I love that story, and this has got to be the origin of the phrase "what a Rube."
Could be.
It sounds like it. That the fact that he was bit for punching a lion, like if that was all that happened in your career, you might be on par with like Cespedes, who was bit by a wild boar on his farm.
That's right.
Because then you'd be on a list of players who were bit by wild animals in the off season doing things you weren't supposed to do. But the fact that he did all of that in 1 year, they ever make a movie about this guy?
I don't know. We could probably check, probably an old black and white movie. I don't know. It's so crazy that it's hard to make a hero out of a guy who leaves a game to go chase a fire truck.
Are you kidding me?
I would argue that he didn't leave the game to chase a fire truck. He left the game for a passion. And sometimes people don't follow any passions. So I want this to be a lesson for all the young kids out there who are trying to figure out what to do with their life. He just did it all. So don't say no.
All of it.
Don't say no to anything. And don't say, oh, this is too much. You're giving me too much work. Just look at...
I didn't mention in the year he played rugby and baseball, he also was a goalie on a soccer team. So,
well, why not?
He did. If there was something to do, Rube was doing it. He didn't remember how many times he got married. When they asked him, they think it was 3 or 4.
Well, that's way low in today's standards. I mean, he today. The interesting fact that he passed away at 37. I believe the Mets are only signing players older than his life. And you have to be beyond 37 because they have signed, I believe, 2. They signed Mr. Verlander and they signed Mr. Robertson, both of which are over 37. So the Mets are definitely, we could easily, in honor of him, say everybody who signed over 37 is clearly hats off.
Yeah, definitely get Robertson is 38.
He is. He definitely lived. No one can argue he didn't live, and no one can argue he didn't take that cup of life and just drench himself with it. He tried everything. He wasn't scared to fail. Clearly, wasn't scared if he didn't memorize his lines. Wasn't scared to confront those things that are our biggest fears, i.e., a lion on stage. So I mean,
saved a lady from drowning, fighting a flood, fires. He did it all.
And you would think today. The fans are making fun of me by bringing shiny objects and teddy bears. I want to go into my shell and find a therapist. No siree. That's not this guy. The other thing that I find interesting is he kind of laid the groundwork for people like primetime Deion Sanders. I think about all of the flair outside of the game, the dramatics outside the game that people would go to watch. They go to watch those items. They are attracted to those. They connect with those players. And he was able to find a huge draw. So I think this is great to bring this up to the Suits. We'll see what the Suits say. But it's a great story. I really enjoyed it. Very inspirational.
Sign me up for the club.
Yep. I didn't tell you the price yet.
Do you get a shirt?
Well, it depends how much I can get for people to join. I got to pay for the shirt.
Right.
So since all the signings that have occurred, now that we are going into the offseason moves, the biggest ones that to me are striking for the Mets is the fact that the Mets have signed Mr. your guy, Todd, Brandon Nimmo.
Mm-hmm.
Signed him for $162 million. As a Mets fan, is that a stretch, a release? I mean, he's 30. It's an 8-year deal. And I'm sitting there thinking, when I heard that, I did not have him over the $100 million. I did not have him at all going over $100 million as his overall contract. So pleasantly surprised that he did that the Mets did that. But what are your thoughts on getting him for 8 years? I know you really wanted him. as a Mets fan.
Yeah.
Is that the contract you wanted him on? Or is that just like, who cares, we're going?
It's one of those things where I was kind of becoming convinced we were going to lose him and we'd have to go and sign Bellinger for a year or something like that, just to kind of pause somewhere in center field. The truth is, Brandon Nimmo, when he first came to the Mets, was not that great a center fielder. He doesn't have a lot of the raw skills that a lot of outfielders have that people expect. People criticize he doesn't hit for power or this, that, and the other thing. The reality is, when he takes a walk, he's the fastest guy to first base. He doesn't mosey around down there. He's not walking. He's not walking when he hits a home run. He's running around the bases. He's always hustling. I think he signed this contract in the minds of Mets fans when he made that catch in center field that robbed the home run at the end of the season and started pumping his fist coming off that, basically willing the team to get revved up and to move forward. It's a guy who just loves playing the game. I think the Mets fans appreciate that. They appreciate someone who loves playing the game. And I think we appreciate the fact that this guy has taken every single bit and ounce of potential that he has and pushed it farther than it should go. And if that means we got to have him for 8 years and then he moves to left field and then he moves to first base and then he moves to DH, we'll take that. That's fine. There's worse things that you could spend $20 million on.
Can you tell me
this guy?
Can you tell me what his batting average and home runs were last year?
Hold on, I'll get that for you. I think his home runs were somewhere around 16. There wasn't a lot of power. Yeah, 2022 he was 16 home runs, 274 batting average. On base percentage is 367. 3 stolen bases.
So he's a good player, but how much did they give him? 101?
I'm going to call this the Eric Burns contract.
Oof.
This is a bad deal. The Eric Burns lit up the Diamondbacks for 1 year, and they signed him for several years because all the fans fell in love with him. And now you're signing him for 8 as a fan favorite with those numbers. That's not my guy. I'm not giving him 162. He's no Trey Turner sliding in the hearts of millions. But I mean, 8 years, you could have had him for 4. You could have had him for 3. I think you could have had him for a lot less guaranteed money. He is one of those guys that, basically, you're a Mets fan. You see this. I hear those numbers and I think Eric Burns. He made every Diamondback fan fall in love. His hustle, grit, he was first there to do it. Here's the biggest problem that Eric Burns has. The very next year, he tried to earn every single $1 million on every at-bat. Got injured, tried to catch everything, run through the wall, and then had a series of injuries and was out of baseball quicker than quick. The biggest thing that I'm concerned with the Mets is not all the signings, it's now the pressure. Can Buck Showalter have that team playing game to game, inning to inning, and not worry about the bigger picture of we have to win it all right now in the month of June, in the month of July, when baseball starts early on? Can they do a pace of play? Yes, they have older gentlemen on their team, distinguished announcers. I would actually have Max and Justin in the booth when they're not pitching, personally, because they might as well train for the next career. But I think that's going to be the biggest question. How do you keep that going for 162 games? How do you pace the play? How do you ramp that up as you get closer? And they're going to be battling the Phillies, and they're going to be battling the Braves. It's going to be really exciting to watch. But as an owner, if you're an owner, you can't criticize the ownership. The ownership is in. Now, the GM, ex-Angels GM, following through, throwing money everywhere, you could criticize what they're doing, if they're smart or not smart. We'll see what they can do. I think there's a lot of pressure on Buck to keep everybody really level. My opinion.
The mistake they made last year, and then Dan, I'll toss it over to you. I think the mistake they made last year was they thought coming out strong at the beginning of the year meant that they had locked it up. Recognizing that when you get to the playoffs, you got to look at what the Astros are doing. It's just consistent performance across the board. So you're looking at what their counterparts are doing in the National League East. You have the Braves and you have the Phillies. Obviously going for broke. Both teams are going for broke, right? Padres going for broke. For the Mets, now with the addition of Senga here, you're right. This is a win the World Series now, or it is a total failure. If in 2023 we do not win the World Series, it's a total failure. But I think you're not going to see them get down in the dumps over being 3 games up or 2 or 3 games back come June or July. I don't think that's going to be an issue for them.
For me, I think the thing is, on paper, this team looks incredible because they got all the star power. But for win a pennant, 162 games requires depth because injuries happen. Sometimes injuries take a guy out for 2 months. And I don't know about the depth, but you're right, Todd, about this. Expectations are going to be ridiculous. And I disagree with you. I think if the Mets are not in first place, if they're sitting there 4 and 5 out, there's going to be immense criticism about how can this team be doing so poorly. I think they'll be under a lot of pressure because you're right. That division, just because they signed all these guys, is not conceding. I still say, I've always believed the Braves are one of the smartest organizations in baseball. They know what they're doing, and you can never, even though the Phillies and the Mets are winning all the newspaper headlines now, you got to watch the Braves. And I don't know why I say that. It's just experience. They're going to do the things they need. Plus, they got a doggone good team anyway.
The Braves remind me of the Mariners in that they're not making big splashes in the offseason. I mean, where the Mariners got long, right? So like they're not making these big splashes in the offseason, but they're going to consistently be around and they are going to be there at the moments that matter. And it's plausible they're going to win or win any playoff series that they're in. I see the Mariners and the Braves as very similar in that sense. I see the Padres and the Phillies as very similar, going all in on offense, as much as possible to build that offense up. I don't think we can say anything like what we're seeing with the Mets. Even Steinbrenner, in his heyday, before he passed the team on to his son, I don't think Steinbrenner even went to these lengths that we're seeing with Cohen.
No.
So
It's
So I one of the positions that I thought was really interesting to watch this offseason was shortstop because of all the high name, high value guys. Is Lindor as the shortstop for the Mets right now? When you look at the free agent signings that were, you got Trey Turner's, the Corey Seagers went last year, things of that nature. Lindor is one of the highest paid players. And I think ever since he came over from Cleveland, I don't think he's been worth his weight for what he's getting and for being a leader on the team. The other thing that I wonder about with the Mets, it seemed to me like the pressure built. So when Max would lose, then you were like, DeGrom's got to win. They have to win. So they added the pressure to the next starter rather than it's okay, we have somebody else to go throw it out. So the hope is that they don't feel that pressure like they did this last year. I think this year's offseason with shortstops, we still have 2 out there with Dansby Swanson, who was once a Diamondback and traded terribly to the Braves. So he's a free agent. And then Carlos Carrera, who is with the Twins, formerly of Houston, who's going to get a huge, huge amount of money. And I've heard rumors that the Mets are still looking for a bat. And if they get another bat, I just don't... It doesn't seem like the end is here for the Mets, which is shocking to even say, considering all the signings they've had, and especially when you're looking at an offseason that has been so amazing for them. The fact that they're still looking at a bigger contract like that, I mean, those would be huge contracts. I mean, this is pretty wild to me that they're still in a conversation.
So this is why you're a crackhead. And I love you. You're my brother, but this is why you're a crackhead. Number one, Francisco Lindor signed the contract and the first year was a bust. I'll give you that. But this last year, he was not. He was a leader. He did perform over 100 RBIs, 26 home runs, from a shortstop, 16 stolen bases, coming in clutch in a couple situations when it mattered. I don't know what more you want from the shortstop position. His best friend is Carlos Correa, who has expressed in the past that he would move to third base to play with Francisco Lindor. So That stuff added in there, guess who needs a third baseman? The Mets could use it.
How much is that deal with Lindor? What's the total size of it?
Compared to this year, nothing.
It's a deal. It's a deal.
That's $34 million a year.
What was the total deal? Was it an 8-year, 9-year? How much are we talking? Do you know the facts and figures on that?
Because he signed up through 2031.
Oh, wow.
So that was a 10-year, $341 million deal.
So if you give Carrera $300 million, you have $600 million between the two friends. They're best friends. Not to mention the advertisement dollars just on that side of the infield. Wow. Just wow. Another level. God bless the Mets. That's not even...
Their best offensive player is signed till when? Alonso.
I think he becomes a free agent in like 2 years.
So they're going to have to fork over to keep him.
But you got to understand, after 2024, the Mets payroll right now, as it stands, even with Senga, their payroll right now in 2024 is $120 million. Like, we're talking about all these contracts and everything they're doing. They don't have a lot committed after 2024. This team is built for 2023 and maybe 2024. After that, all the contracts go away.
No, they don't. We just said Nimmo was on for 8 years.
Right, but you have Nimmo and Lindor. That's it.
Scherzer's gone?
Scherzer's gone. Verlander's gone. I mean, that's, Pete Alonso's on an arbitration deal here. I mean, Alonso becomes a free agent in 2025. Estimated to make $12 million next year.
Well, I right now, I know they've gone ridiculous with the money, but I still don't know. I think there's a lot of pressure on Lindor and Alonso. I mean, who else they got that they can rely on? Starling Marte's pretty good, but the offense, I think, is not dependable.
No, that's why Correa will not be surprising.
That would be wild. I want to go back to the team that we started off the whole podcast with, which was the introduction of Mr. DeGrom to Texas. Now, Texas is building a winner, right? That's what they said. They're going to build a winner. Now, they had a whopping 68 wins last year. So their signings this year, so far, they signed Andrew Heaney, starting pitcher from the Dodgers, for 2 years, $25 million. Then they signed Martin Perez, who was their ace. So they have signed Jacob and 2 other pitchers, and that's all Texas has signed this year. That's it. So do you think Jacob's having signing remorse, or do you think he's happy, he's moved on in life, he's good? Because I can't sit there with a straight face and watch that introduction and think, oh yeah, they're building a winner after you let the Mets, who are not building, they're just buying. Dad, what do you say? What did you say while Todd eats all of his Mets popcorn?
Well, this is me watching the Texas Rangers lose this year.
Oh, it's good.
Well, I don't know if Texas is. I don't think they've even passed Seattle, so I think Seattle and Houston still stand above them. I think Kansas City and Oakland are still below them.
They're still middle of the pack. I don't disagree with you. I just think it's funny that Texas hasn't made a bigger move.
Did I make a mistake? Is Kansas City in the West, or did I put the wrong team in there?
No, Kansas City's not in the West. It's Oakland.
They're in the center.
Seattle. It's the Angels. The Angels better than them or worse? The Angels were better last year. Texas was 4th.
And I think they pass with those pitchers. I think they pass the Angels.
Well, I think it'll be it's still an interesting offseason. We still have a lot going on. The other big signings, I think the Cubs are sneakily doing some nice things. The Cubs I love the Cubs offseason. Tell me what do you love? I think the Cubs they're not making a big splash. They're not spending too much cash. They literally are putting pieces in play that will make them competitive, in my opinion, in that division, because that division is, yes, the Cardinals are loaded. It looks like it's the Cardinal division. However, The rest of those 4 teams, including Milwaukee, I think it's open to see who can battle them. And I think the Cubs made a couple nice, smart moves. Todd, which ones are your favorite?
I love the Cody Bellinger signing. I know that whenever we had talked about Bellinger, I had always said that I thought that this guy's going to go to a Midwest team, a team in the Central, and he's going to take advantage of the fact that he has 1 year to really prove himself. He did exactly that. It's a big market team. Cubs are a big market team. He's going to get his attention there. But I just love Bellinger on the Cubs. I wouldn't be shocked if he's the comeback player of the year this year. I wouldn't be shocked if he's the breakout player of the year. I wouldn't be shocked if he comes out and just blows everybody away and all the expectations there. I think that's a great environment for him, and I think the Cubs really did the right thing, and they didn't spend Mets money. $12 million for 1 year is a bargain. I thought this guy would get $15 million. Good for the Cubs on that one.
What else have they done?
They picked up Jameson Taillon, who was with the Yankees starting pitch, and he was with the Pirates beforehand. He's a solid starter. He's not going to blow you away, but as far as a reliable pitcher who's going to give you innings, and again, it's not a ton of cash. It's a 4-year, $68 million deal. So Cody actually, Todd did get 17 and a half. And the best thing about Cody's deal, he's 27 and a half years old. He's right where you want to be for prime. And I know he's had a couple injuries, and I know that's hurt his swing, but a lefty without the switch, I love that. The relief pitchers have to face 3 batters, so that only helps him. And I think him and Wrigley, he could really become a fan favorite. The other team to me, if switching teams, that's really shocking to me, the Dodgers doing nothing.
I want to make a comment about the Cubs. Mm-hmm. I think, for me, one of the best things they did was an addition by subtraction. They got rid of Jason Hayward. Jason Hayward has cost them a lot of money, and he's an automatic out. He's been awful. And what interests me is what you just talked about, Brendan. I'm going to give it back to you. The Dodgers haven't done much, but they signed 2 of the biggest duds. They got Shelby Miller and Jason Hayward on their team. Those guys aren't going to help you get very far, but I do like the Cubs getting rid of Hayward. That just don't let the door hit you.
But we're talking about no money either. They didn't spend money on Shelby Miller or Hayward. They gave Hayward a minor league deal, so he may not even make the team. So it's not like they're committed. They got Kershaw back, so they're happy with that. But to me, I thought the Dodgers were going to make a big splash. They lost. So here's what they have lost in the last 2 years. They lost Corey Seager. They lost Trey Turner. They've lost Cody Bellinger. Cody Bellinger and Mookie Betts are supposed to be the tandem forever. Now, I know Cody has not played up to that. So you have Mookie Betts forever. You have Freeman, who they got from the Braves, forever. So Justin Turner, who was their third baseman, who's a free agent, probably won't get re-signed. So all I've read about the Dodgers is they're loaded in minor leagues. So maybe they're just bringing kids up from the minors, and I'm really surprised they have not made a splash, and maybe they're happy with their commitment. Now, the other team tying teams to Mookie Betts, what is Boston doing? Is the GM of Boston just saying we're going to field? They're not going to be competitive. They just lost. They lost Mookie. Now they lost Xander Bogaerts. I don't know what direction Boston is going. They're not committing to players. I know he got an 11-year deal as a shortstop to San Diego. God knows where he's going to play, probably second base. So the San Diego Padres continue to load up and spend money. So the Padres are spending money. Boston's not, the Dodgers aren't. And I don't understand it. Maybe Boston are they loaded in the minors? Are they ready to do a revamp? Because I didn't see it last year.
I see Boston signed Kenley Jansen, who's an older reliever for 2 years. They are probably going to lose J.D. Martinez, who's also older, and his better years are behind him also. But you're right, it's puzzling what Boston's doing.
I love the Yoshida signing, though.
Yeah, I don't know much about him.
He's a contact hitter, Dad. You love batting average and on-base percentage and all that stuff. That's your guy right there. It really like one of those guys that just legitimate rock star at that position, and they got him for $18 million a year. Like, to me, they're a 29-year-old player who makes really serious contact with the ball. A great signing by them, but like, that's one of the things that I look at, and it's like, okay, so what else are you doing, right? Because the Yankees signed Judge. They signed Judge. They've got, they brought Rizzo back. I think the Yankees are probably in the lead when it comes to Rodon from San Francisco, so they start to boost up their pitching and that type of thing. So then, if you're the Red Sox, how are you keeping up with that? Not by just signing Yoshida. You got to up it. You got to up it. If you're the Red Sox and you just lost Bogarts, how do you not go after Correa?
I think the thing is that we get so entrapped in the last 10 days at the big signings and the huge amounts of money that we forget that every year the thing that makes winning teams go are those role players. You got to have depth, and you got to have role players who are not making $100 million, but they're contributing. Maybe they're getting paid $10, $12 million, but they're key players, and there's depth. So you switch them around. They still produce. They steal a few bases. They make a good defensive play. They keep you in ball games. Those are the guys that we don't talk about at this time of the year. But as we get closer to spring training, we're going to be looking like, okay, what have we got here after the stars? Because just with the stars, you can't win.
Well, speaking of that, I mean, like, Dad, how great of a signing. I mean, like, the highest paid player now in the Cleveland Guardians is Josh Bell.
Mm-hmm.
So now you've got Bell and Ramirez on that team. I mean, that team was fun to watch, and they were dangerous in their own way. And I got to tell you, that Cleveland Guardians are not taking a step back.
They had the lowest payroll, and they were in the playoffs seriously playing. And another team with a low payroll that did well was Baltimore. I don't know what we look for from Baltimore this year, but they did it without big-name stars. That's what I'm talking about. It can be done. Tampa does it almost every year.
Yeah, Boston's confusing to me. Jansen is such a bad signing. He was done when the Dodgers let him go. He wasn't good on the Braves. Now he's with Boston. He's 35. It's over. Like, Chapman's not getting signed for a reason. These relievers, when they lose it, it's really bad, and it goes really bad fast. It's like bad cheese being left out. It just goes bad really quickly. So I don't know why you're signing him for 2 years for that amount of money. That's the other thing that's shocking to me about Boston. Oakland is starting to sign a couple people. They are no one that you would hear of. They would be more role players, but they're going to play a lot, and they are in their 30s, that 33-year-old time frame. So I think they'd give them the minimum deal of 2 years so they can go over and play for the Las Vegas A's at one point as they are building their roster to move. It's going to be, again, I agree with you about role players. I think right now, if you're looking at Cleveland, their biggest competition is the White Sox. The White Sox had a Tony La Russa problem. He's gone. Now that team can perform. Now, they did lose some players. They lost your favorite first baseman, Dad, and they lost a couple pitchers and what have you, but they still have a very, very good roster to face against Cleveland. I feel Cleveland is one of those teams that's just consistent. They're going to consistently be there, and if you are not showing up and getting 90 wins, they'll take the division from you.
I like the White Sox last year, and I like them again this year. I think they're a good young team.
I would agree with that as well. Anybody that in the National League that has absolutely shocked you that they haven't done something besides, to me, the Dodgers is rather shocking. Anybody else?
Surprised about the Giants. I think the Giants have tried, but they keep missing. But they got money and they have holes. So it's not that they're poor. So I'm surprised they haven't landed. They're a smart organization. I'm surprised they haven't gotten somebody yet.
I would agree. Dodgers, Giants, more so because they don't have anyone to begin with, really. And they really did need to get a kind of the flair out there, if you will. And I think they were trying for Aaron Judge. That would have been a huge signing. So we'll see what they do. If they reverse course, if they can sign some folks, get them in there. We have a lot of room. We still have a lot of really good players that are available.
Well, they just got, the Giants have some serious holes. They given up on Brandon Belt, Brandon Crawford, Longoria, and Rodon, their ace, is going to be hard to bring back. They got a lot of holes to fill, and that's a curious one. That's maybe as confusing as Boston.
Yeah, the three bats that I think will be role players, but not so much this year. I mean, I say role players meaning they can come in and really help a team spice them up. I think JD Martinez is bigger than a role player. I think he can really help a team trying to push to the playoffs. I think Justin Turner's the same way with the DH. You don't have to stress him out at third base. You can sign him, be very happy with him. And the other one that I really, really like, as far as bat is concerned, and I know he's very, very, very old, is Nelson Cruz. The only reason why I like Nelson Cruz is he swings for the fences, and he's up there in age, but he is serviceable. So those are people that I think will be interesting to see where they end up on a team and what they provide. Because to me, having someone like Nelson Cruz off your bench, not a bad DH, he can help your team. Having somebody like JD Martinez, he's 35. He's not beyond that age that he can really help you. And I think Justin Turner and Nelson Cruz are at that age where a couple of bats, bring them in, use them serviceably, and then get ready for them in the playoffs, because they've always been in those primetime moments. Those are guys that I want to see who gets them. That's something that, to me, would be a good Met addition. Not a lot of money. You get them for 1 year, and then they're serviceable if you really want to go over the top.
Another good fit is a good young team who just needs another bat. Perhaps a team, I'm not saying they're the team, but a team like Baltimore or Cleveland, if they could, for a reasonable amount, bring in a guy for a year who give them some runs, that would be a good contribution.
And also, I think the other thing that those individuals bring is the professionalism of baseball. If you've been around around MLB for that long, you know how to go in and out. You know how to make it work. You know how to treat it like a job. That's the hard part about the younger folks. So, like, putting Nelson Cruz on the White Sox may be smart, or Justin Turner on the White Sox with the younger team, showing them how to play and how to be professional. That's the thing that Cleveland has that is unspoken about a guy like Ramirez. He took a discount. He comes in. He does work. He shows you the example of what it looks like to be a consistent ball player. If you want to be a consistent ball player, watch him. Focus on him. Be like him. That's a big deal. And if those other teams don't have that, or you're searching for that person, that can really hurt you. So I think guys like the Cubs will benefit a lot from Bellinger, who came from the Dodgers, who was able to watch a lot of very professional players just bringing the briefcase into work. That's a big deal. Teaching a 20-year-old, a 23-year-old, a 25-year-old, this is how you do it. Because at the end of the day, baseball is a tough sport because you're not going to bed till 2 or 3 in the morning, and you don't have to show up till 3 o'clock in the afternoon. If you're 22, 23, 24, 25 in the major leagues, to treat it like a real job and not party or lose a couple weekends or lose a series, that's difficult. Especially with all the money, especially with all the trips. I mean, you're getting top-notch travel, top-notch everything. Those players, I think, are key. If you're a GM, to say, how do I want the tone to be set for this year?
It's like the Kevin Costner player in Bull Durham.
Mm-hmm.
Showing, what do you call them, meat the whole time. The name escapes me. The actor's name escapes me right now, but showing him how to, this is how you treat the game of baseball. This is how you respect the game of baseball, that type of thing. I mean, yeah, there's stuff to be had out there. And
are you talking about Kevin Costner?
Yeah, no, Kevin Costner was helping the younger player, Susan Sarandon's boyfriend.
I know who you mean. Shawshank Redemption.
Yeah, the guy from Shawshank Redemption. Before he went to prison, he was pitching for the Durham Bulls. And
That's right.
He didn't know how to play baseball. He ended up in prison.
So I hate to make this like such a serious day here at the SwingBadder, but the fear of us old dudes, going way back to Steinbrenner, is that money will take the competitiveness out of baseball. You're going to have 3 or 4 or 5 teams with a chance to win it, and all the rest of them are just going to play 162 games for statistic. And it looks like we might be looking at that again. We were blessed last year to have a team like Cleveland without payroll make the playoffs and be a very good team. Do we have any more teams like that, or are the Mets and the Phillies and the big ticket teams, even the Dodgers, still, are they just going to squelch them?
But the Astros are not a high payroll team, and here they are consistently winning, whether you like it or not. I don't think it takes a lot for a team to come in and be a spoiler with the way some of this stuff played out. You look at what happened to the Mets in the postseason. I mean, listen, if the Mets lose again in the postseason, in the first round, in a 1-game playoff, a 3-game playoff, that's going to be a failure on par with Avatar 2. There's nothing there. Cohen, you gotta understand what you've done. I will paint myself blue and I will go into the water and I will whatever. I don't even know anything about Avatar, but they spend billions. This thing's gotta be successful. That's where we're at with it.
Dad, to your point about the teams in the bottom half that I would follow this year as SwingBadder if we're going to cheer for teams. The Baltimore Orioles, obviously they're in the bottom. They can do some damage. They actually were very impressive. Them and Tampa in the AL East. I think that's the frustrating thing for Boston. Boston finished dead last, not looking good again, spending money, but they don't really have a direction. I think the GM or whoever they hired there, was it a cat, a dog? I don't know who's doing that job, but they really are terrible. You have Tampa, Toronto's they're up there. They're in the top half. So the bottom half, the bottom half. Seattle is in the bottom half. Cleveland, Tampa, Baltimore. I would love for Pittsburgh to be relevant in baseball again. I obviously don't see it. But man, if you want to talk about classic, bring me back to the classic times of when baseball was fresh and they had the big bats in Pittsburgh, that uniform, those players, that would be fantastic. So
yeah,
Cleveland, you're right, is definitely and Tampa is the bread and butter to this thing. That's for sure.
Well, it's early yet on the 2023 payrolls. Other players are going to be signed. But, you look at the bottom teams in terms of payments. You got Oakland, Baltimore, Pittsburgh, Tampa, Kansas City, and Cleveland. And interestingly enough, the next team lowest at the bottom has come down from being a player is the Milwaukee Brewers. They've dropped down to 24th out of 30th in payroll.
What are you saying? They want to trade their biggest salary piece, Christian?
I think they'd love to, but I don't know if anybody wants that salary. Yelich.
Well, they hired the Colorado GM who made the Arenado deal happen. I'm pretty sure that anybody would take that deal with Christian. If you pick up half their salary and then give them away and then proceed to sign another outfielder for just as much, Milwaukee would be very, very fond of that. This has been
the biggest failure is going to be the Rangers. It's just absolute,
You think they're staying fourth?
They'll be fourth in payroll, and they'll be last in the division.
Hard to see
Oakland beating them, but sure. I mean, I would love that as well.
Why wouldn't they? Who won, outside of DeGrom, who on the Rangers threatens anyone?
Really nobody.
Yeah, and if DeGrom gets hurt again, they don't even have him.
It's really bad.
It's going to be an interesting year.
Well, I can tell you they're going to be reading about the Cowboys during the summer because they're not going to be following the Rangers. So final thoughts here to wrap up the podcast. What is the team, or what are your thoughts, or what are you thinking about the offseason? Todd's obviously super stoked because the Mets have spent more money this offseason than ever before. Final thoughts from you, Dad, first. What do you got for us?
Well, just looking at paper and things like that, I'm a big fan, becoming a fan of the Cleveland Guardians. They've just done a lot with a little. They continue to make good moves. They got some great young players. Got to pay attention to them.
Very good. Todd, final thoughts on your on the wonderments of
I've been thinking about this very deeply, and Steve Cohen is the Rube Waddell of owners. Shiny object, go chase it, baby. Go chase it.
Fire.
This is the year. 2023 is the year the Mets punch the lion. This is it.
I think so.
All good references. Anyways, thank you for joining us on SwingBadder. We appreciate you. Don't forget to check out the website. Check out some hats. Get a nice thing for your dome here as we get ready for the offseason. Be proud of your team and their bad contracts. And check out the website. We got all new contracts coming out this week. You can vote on. Pick your worst of the 5. And thanks again. Appreciate you, Dad. Appreciate you, Todd. You guys have a great day.
Okay, good night.